All right, hello everyone. Hi. So today we're going to talk about the Pacific Crest Trail. Does anyone know what that is or has heard of it? No? All right, yeah. What have you heard about it? Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to describe it. It's a really long trail. So pretty much the Pacific Crest Trail is this hiking trail. It's about 1 or 2 feet wide that runs all the way from Mexico through the state of California, Oregon, and Washington to Canada. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce myself. Well, I'm one of you. I went to Kennedy. I graduated here in 2008. And then, so after Kennedy, I went to Naperville North. Go Huskies! And at North, I continued to play baseball and football and participated in some of the clubs there and activities and doing community service and whatnot. And ended up graduating, fortunately, in 2013 and left for Los Angeles to study at Pomona College. But there I played football for 4 years and graduated this past May with a degree in neuroscience. So now I'm going to be I want to be a doctor, that's my goal, and I'm going to be heading to medical school this fall. But before I start that journey, I had a dream that I really, really wanted to accomplish. And that dream is to hike the Pacific Crest Trail. So it was during my time out at Pomona that I discovered my passion in neuroscience, but I also discovered how much I loved hiking. So that brings me to the reason I'm here today, the PCT. So we're going to watch, has anyone heard of Wild, the movie or book? A couple? All right, so we're going to watch a short clip about the movie.
I didn't know about the Pacific Crest Trail until I decided to hike it.
There's really nobody who knows the trail like our organization does.
They are the people who keep this trail a real, living, wild place for all of us and for the people to come.
Pacific Crest Trail is a national scenic trail that runs from Mexico to Canada. It's a 2,650-mile trail. The highest point is Forester Pass, which is over 13,000 feet.
So how many miles a day are you doing?
I'm averaging 22 at the moment.
I'm only managing about 11 or 12.
Well, first couple of weeks are always hard.
It's just been really inspiring, experiencing this incredible beauty in the world, and it makes you feel like things are going to be okay, you know?
I thought that Cheryl's book was very true to the trail. Not only does it show both the joy and the sorrow that is possible and the hardship that's possible on the trail, but also the transformative personal experiences. That's the reason why we love the trail.
With the attention that the movie is bringing, there's going to be a lot of people that come out and hike on the PCT, and that's a wonderful thing. Some of the challenges that Cheryl faced are very real. The heat, lack of water, snow, rattlesnakes. There's quite a lot of rattlesnakes on the PCT. It's the wilderness.
All right, that was a great video. So the PCT is part of this awesome, giant network of trails that we have here in the U.S. Called the U.S. National Historic and Scenic Trail System. There are 30 trails in this system that run over 50,000 miles worth of hiking. And the PCT is part of the scenic trails. It's the second oldest scenic trail. And it runs along the west coast from north to south. And the Pacific Crest, it follows the Pacific Crest, is essentially just a string of mountains that go the entire length of the west coast. So I've got a couple stats here about the trail. The PCT is 2,659 miles long. To put that in perspective that you might understand, that's the equivalent of walking from New York City, Times Square, to Kennedy, back to New York City, back to Kennedy, and then up to the Wisconsin Dells. So, yeah, pretty long. It goes through 6 of the 7 ecozones that can be found in the United States. Everything ranging from alpine tundra down to the desert. I think everything except the rainforest. It goes through 6 national parks, including the very famous Yosemite National Park. And the cumulative ascent, which just means the total number of feet walked vertically, the change in vertical feet is 428,011 feet. This is about the same as walking from sea level to the tippy top of Mount Everest 15 times. And can anyone guess the fastest someone has ever hiked the entire PCT? The record for doing it all by yourself, without any help from anyone else, is 60 days by Heather Anderson in 2013. And can anyone do quick math? How many miles per day did she hike? A lot, yeah. So, hands up. 34, that's pretty good, almost. One more guess. Wow, spot on, yeah. So, 44.3 miles per day. That's pretty impressive. So, my journey is going to start the 18th of March from this little town along the border in Southern California called Campo. As you can see in the picture, there's a little monument to commemorate the beginning of your hike. And in the background, you can actually see the border there. So the first 700 miles of hiking are desert. And as you can imagine, the desert's hot, it's dry, and it's full of creepy crawlies like tarantulas and rattlesnakes and all that fun stuff. But the desert also has its hidden gems. The picture on the right is something called the super bloom. So in spring, after a particularly wet winter, the desert will be covered in fields of wildflowers. Just absolutely the most colorful natural sight I could ever imagine. You also have these funny looking trees on the bottom right. Does anyone know what they are? Spot on. Yes, the Joshua tree. It's this Dr. Seuss looking, cactus looking vegetation. I don't really know what it is, but it looks really funny. And it's similar to cacti in that they are able to survive in the desert. So who can tell me why these plants do so well in such a terribly harsh environment?
They like store water or something?
Yeah, exactly. So in an area where there's a lack of water, the only plants that can survive are the ones that can do well without a ton of water. Some plants are able to burrow their roots very deep in the ground and reach those deep reserves of water. Other plants, like the Joshua tree and cactus, they're able to close their leaves for extended periods of time to make sure water doesn't escape out of them. The next 400 miles take you through the Sierra Nevada mountains. And this is the highest point of the trail. So quickly, is it more difficult or easier to breathe when you're at higher altitude? More difficult, yeah. So the trail here goes above 10,000 feet elevation and stays up there for the majority of it. The highest point of the trail, as they mentioned in the video, is Forester Pass at over 13,000 feet. And in fact, the highest mountain in the lower 48, not including Alaska and Hawaii, can be found in this area. Does anyone know what that mountain is? At about half the height of Mount Everest, we have Mount Whitney, which is 14,500 feet tall. And that's shown there on the bottom right. So another fun part about this area is you see lots of bears. So bears are always on the look for food, and as you'll be carrying this pack here that's full of food, it makes me an easy target. But why? Can anyone tell me why it's not a good idea for me to feed the friendly bear? Green.
Because then the bear will keep coming back for more, and you'll eventually run out of food.
Yeah, not only will I run out of food, but then I might become food myself. But that pretty much hits the nail on the head. The reason you don't want to feed bears or any wild animals for that matter is they will almost instantly learn to associate humans as an easy source of food. If I gave a bear a little treat to, hopefully he stays away from me, well, he is then going to be more likely to come after other hikers for food. And that can put a lot of people in danger, so absolutely want to stay away from that. The next section, which is miles 1,100 to roughly mile 1,900, begins the Cascade Mountain Range. So the Cascades are part of this greater system called the Ring of Fire. Does anyone know the Ring of Fire? Oh, wow. Let's see here. Let's let your hand go first, purple shirt. Yeah.
Okay, so under the water, there are when the plates clash together, it's more likely for there to be volcanoes or natural disasters, and there's a ring of them.
Exactly, yeah. So, well done. So, the Ring of Fire is this, if you see on a map, it pretty much outlines the Pacific Ocean, all the way from Alaska to Indonesia to Japan to South America, North America, including the Cascade Range. What makes it the Ring of Fire is, I believe the stat is 90% of the entire Earth's volcanic activity occurs around the Ring of Fire. And then, as you were saying, with the tectonic plates, that generates a lot of this volcanic and earthquake activity. And specifically with the Cascade Range, how it works is you have the Pacific Plate, which is the tectonic plate underneath the Pacific Ocean, and the North American Plate. And you have the Pacific Plate going underneath the North American Plate, pushing up the North American Plate to form the Cascade Mountains. And that also generates the lava underneath that makes them volcanic. So in this range, almost as immediately as you get out of the Sierra Nevadas, you see the volcanic activity very literally. So the top left picture is Lassen Volcanic National Park in Northern California. And it is known for its mud flats and these geysers and steam pools. So you see the volcanic activity heating up the water very literally. Then moving on from there, you have this picture on the bottom left, Crater Lake. Does anyone know Crater Lake? Yeah, sweet. So Crater Lake is what's called a caldera, which essentially is, you have 8,000 years ago, you had this massive mountainous volcano, and it had a huge eruption. So eruption so big that it blew the top off the volcano, and all you're left with is this bowl-like structure in its place. And over the years, it filled up with rainwater and snow water, and you have this beautiful lake. And the trail comes to a conclusion in the northern part of the Cascades, which are less exciting volcanically, but are more exciting in terms of their sheer beauty. So its trademark is very deep valleys and very high peaks that make it for very beautiful hiking. And the trail ends in Canada at this little wooden monument just over the border. So how does one go about hiking for 2,659 miles? Well, it's pretty easy. You just walk. All right, maybe not that easy, but as with anything, whether you're on the trail or at home, you must have your basic needs considered and covered. So what are some basic needs that a hiker would need to consider while hiking. Water, perfect. Under Armour. Food, yes.
First aid kit.
First aid kit, that's a good one. Let's go over here. Shelter, spot on. So first one is food. And in general, when it comes to food on the trail, as you can see on the map here, the trail about every 3 to 5 days will go by a small town. And in the small town, you can either buy food to last you until the next town, or you can send yourself food in a package. But all the food, you've got to be able to carry in your pack. So the foods that are best for hikers, are the foods that won't go bad, even if you spend 4 days under the hot Californian sun. You also want to focus on food that are nutritious, especially for hikers. Since you're walking all day, you need lots of protein and fat to supply energy. So the best foods for this are nuts and peanut butter and macaroni and cheese, and my personal favorite, Snickers. The next one, as I said, was water. So surprisingly enough, water can be found fairly consistently along the trail. When you're in the mountains, it's pretty obvious. You're walking by streams all day, and it's the most pure, fresh, best tasting water that you can find straight from the source, even better than the Lake Michigan water we have here on tap. Other times you're in the desert, and the water is a little more sparse, but the longest distance between water sources is about 40 miles. So you have to be smart. You have to be able to carry lots of it. But as you can see here, as long as so all water is affected by gravity. Gravity pulls it to the lowest point. So if you look down in the ravines, especially wherever anything green is growing, you're going to find a decent source of water. And in the most desperate times, you are sometimes forced to share the water with animals, especially cattle on the cattle ranches. So in those cases, here we go. You can carry a way to treat the water. So the way that I use is I have this little black thing that I can screw on any water bottle. And inside there is a very small and fine filter. And what the filter does, it removes any of the grossness in the water, and it especially removes the things you can't see, those germs that can make you really sick. So pretty much I can use any water source, fill up in the water bottle, screw the black cap on, and be able to drink the water without any worries. What happened? But as we said, shelter, tent, and clothes. So the thing that I like most about backpacking is you're more or less self-sufficient. So everything you need, you carry in this backpack. As far as clothes go, so the general idea with gear is that you want to carry enough to survive, but you don't want to carry too much that your backpack is too heavy. So for me, these are about all the clothes that I'd be wearing on a cool morning, either in the desert or a cold day high up in the mountains. The shelter that I'll be carrying, which we can set up later, actually have in here, is not your typical tent. So this tent can be set up with only these hiking poles. So all you need for this tent is just these 2 poles, which I use anyway to help me hike. And that's the important thing to reduce weight, is to think about how one item can be used for multiple different things. Besides that, you've got certain special gear. So speaking of things that have dual purposes, not necessarily think of with hiking, is an umbrella. But in the desert, it's very hot, and there's the cacti tend to not provide very good shade. So an umbrella, when it's in use, can provide your own little shade or rain cloud or shade, and protect you from the hot sun. All right, so planning. So When it comes to hiking, it's pretty simple. You have to know where you're going and you have to know how to get there. During the entirety of the trail, I'll be carrying maps with me, but also your phone and a small GPS device are very important for helping you know things. As with any goal, it's vital that you practice. And by practicing, you understand the challenges of hiking and sleeping outdoors. You get a better idea of the environment that you'll be heading into. So over time, I started with a day hike and doing a 2-day hike and then doing a week-long hike and 2-week-long hike. So through that time, I've gotten an understanding of the challenges that I might face on the trail. And the last thing that I'll say is, the simple saying, be like Mike. Or in other words, choose someone who's a role model, who is the best at what you want to be able to do, whether it's hiking or playing basketball or being a teacher or a musician, whatever it is, choose a role model that you can try to be more like. The last thing I want to throw in there is I can't emphasize enough how important it is to rely on your support system. So as someone who has experienced my own battles with mild depression and whatnot, your friends, your family, community, boyfriend, girlfriend, classmates, Kennedy community, the whole bit. We're all here for each other and never hesitate to show, it's not really showing weakness, but that's what they call it, but to rely on that community. So that brings me to the last bit, why I'm doing the hike. So besides the fact that I really love hiking, I mentioned earlier that one of my interests is medicine, and when thinking of a way to conjoin the two, this seemed like the natural fit. So on the right here, we have a picture of all the guys that I played baseball with at Naperville North, and we graduated together. And first I'd like to point out the guy in the green is a guy who went to Kennedy and actually is at the Tampa Bay Rays spring training camp right now, so he's a little bit better than all of us at baseball. But the guy I'd like to focus on is on the bottom right. He's another Kennedy grad. His name's Ian Gustafson. And Ian and I played baseball for many years, starting in the Lisle Park District, Lisle subdivision, and working our way up through travel baseball in Naperville North. And over the time, we became pretty good friends. And Ian had a younger brother named Mikey. And Mikey was an amazing kid who had the tough luck of having to battle brain cancer, not once, but twice. And Mikey, towards the end of his second battle with brain cancer, when it looked like he wasn't going to survive this battle, decided that his life's goal, his master plan, was to make sure that no other kid had to go through what he did. So although Mikey passed away, unfortunately, in 2013, his legacy lives on with the Swifty Foundation. So that brings me to the Four Pennies campaign. So the Four Pennies is a group of 4 foundations, Swifty Foundation teaming up with 3 other awesome foundations, the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, the Dragon Master Foundation, and the Courtney Rose Foundation, to raise money and awareness for pediatric cancer research in teaming up with my hike. So we're working together, and the significance of 4 pennies, it's a very profound number in the cancer research community, and that's because of every dollar the federal government puts towards cancer research, only 4 cents goes to the pediatric forms. And as the average age for a child being diagnosed with cancer is only 8 years old, and the average age of an adult being diagnosed being 66 years old, one of our goals is to try and raise awareness that, and hope that a greater proportion of the funding goes towards pediatric cancer research. Our other goal is to raise 4 cents, 4 pennies, per step that I take along the trail. So doing some napkin math, tableside math. It takes about 4.6 million steps to hike the entire length of the Pacific Crest Trail. So anyone off the top of their head know what 4 cents times 4.6 million steps is? Yeah. 18.4 million what? Cents? Cents. Okay, so all right, divide that by 100, you end up with about spot on $184,000, and that is our goal to raise towards cancer research. Good math. So if you want to follow my hike, we've got a website going, fourpennies.org, but also each foundation is on your whole array of social media sites if you want to follow. I'll be posting along the trail and we'll be having informational tidbits. So I'd love for you to all be involved. So that's about it for today, and I think afterwards we'll take questions and even set up my tent if you want. So thank you.